Hey my good friend, Sam Haymart with Test Driven TV. I have been spending the entire week with the all-new 2022 Ford Maverick. This is an EcoBoost XLT all-wheel drive with the FX4 package. So I've learned a lot about it driving it around town and out here in the desert. So I'm going to show it to you inside and out. We're going to take it for a test drive and I'm going to tell you what I really think. All right, my friends, before we get out on the test drive, let's talk about what we've got here. As I mentioned in the outset, this is a 2-liter EcoBoost Ford Maverick. This has all-wheel drive, XLT trim grade, and the FX4 package. As such, we're pricing out at about $30,000 and some change. And I'm glad they gave me this trim grade and this configuration because this is almost exactly what you're going to find in most driveways out there right now. This is one of the most popular combinations. So, looking at the styling, there's no question this is a Ford pickup truck. The front end, the face, this has the Ford DNA that we first saw in the most recent F-150 and now most recently the new 2023 Ford Ranger. It's got the headlights and the grille design, that bar that reaches into the headlights. Headlights on this one are LED headlights. There are 2 headlights available on this. On the Lariat is a little bit more fancier version with a LED signature driving light. This just has the standard LED headlights. Down in the lower fascia, you'll see the tow hooks. Those come with the FX4 package and only with the FX4 package. And coming around the side, one of the benefits of that packaging is the fact that we've got some nicer tires here. These are 235/65/17 Falcon Wild Peak all-terrain tires. A nice meaty upgrade, and also upgraded are these wheels, which are an optional wheel that are a standalone option once you get into the XLT 4x4. I think they look great. One of the better looking wheels on the Maverick in Sam's opinion. And coming down the side, you can see that there is a nice plastic trim on the bottom, but they didn't go for trim on the wheel wells here like a lot of crossover SUVs have. This has a little bit more of a simpler look. From this angle, a couple of things I wanted to point out. First thing is that antenna up on the roof. I've been reading out there on the forums, that's actually getting a little bit of controversy. A lot of people just don't like that shark fin / stubby antenna design. And I'll tell you, looking at it myself, it's not so much the design of it that's bugging me, it's the fact that where it's at, if you're putting any kind of a rack system or a lumber rack or a tent or anything that reaches over the cab on this truck, it's in your way. That to me is more of a practical matter than anything. Another very important thing I want to point out on this truck is the fact that because it is a unibody truck, the bed structure and the cab all together is one. But what they've done here is a little trick to keep this thing from having flex and metal stress problems. Is this rear quarter is actually a floating piece, just like the front fender. You can see a seam here where it meets the cab, as well as seams in the plastic trim both here on the bed and down below. If you open the door, you can see that this is bolted on. It's not a welded quarter panel like most cars and SUVs have. That allows this truck to flex and move if you've got a load in the back, if you're off-roading out here, without causing stress cracks in the metal or wrinkling your sheet metal. It's good for longevity, if anything else. Coming to the back, you can see down in the lower bumper, this has the trailer hitch with a 4-pin connector. That comes with the FX4 package. Also, if you option that thing from the factory by itself, it's $100. That's a no-brainer, man. That's a no-brainer. You cannot put that hitch on your own truck for less money than that. Of course, because we have the FX4 package, you get the all-important sticker there on the rear quarter. Coming to the back here, the first thing I wanted to point out in the rear cargo box is the fact that this does not have a soft open tailgate like we have come to expect on a lot of the midsize and full-size trucks out there these days, but it is light enough that it's not a big deal, not like a big heavy tailgate that we find on a lot of the full-size trucks. Looking in the box, this does have the spray-in bed liner and plenty of hooks for your cargo. Over on the driver's side, this does have, with the XLT trim grade, the openable storage cubby. Not lockable, but you can definitely store a few things down in there. Over here on the driver's side, this is still a blank plate. Because this is a compact truck, this has actually got a pretty low lift-in height, as you can see, and that also means that sitting on it is a pretty easy thing to do if you're out tailgating, camping, or anything like that. It's a pretty low height. Putting that up, this is a locking tailgate. If you have the XL, it's manually locking. XLT and above, that does lock with your power locks. The backup camera is on the bottom of the Ford logo here, which means if your tailgate's down, obviously it doesn't work, but that is where they hide the camera on this. The interior of the Maverick is a place that you're probably going to be pretty happy with design-wise if you like the color blue, because all three trim grades come with a blue interior, regardless of which exterior color you get. I'm in luck because I happen to like it. Called Navy Pure, this is actually a color that you're going to find in some of the Highline versions of the F-Series pickup trucks, the full-size ones. And so when they made this, they didn't want to just have a gray or a black interior. They wanted to do something a little bit special, especially at the price point. And being in the XLT trim grade, this has some extra accents and extra trims that make it a little bit more vibrant, let's say. Across the dash and on the door panels is a white plastic trim that has a speckled finish. Looks a lot like solid surface countertops, like a Korean style countertop. I kind of like it. It's completely different than anything you're going to find in any cars out there. Also part of the XLT trim grade are these orange accents. You find them on the vents here and also on the removable rubber pieces that you find down in the center console. Now, I have read online some people aren't so jazzed about these, and the good news is if you don't like them, you can pull them out, and or you can go to your Ford parts counter and get black ones like you'd find from the XL. That said, this is a basic interior. This is a truck that was meant to start out at $20,000, and that means there is hard plastic literally everywhere. The only place you're going to find soft touch materials in here are on the center console lid and on the actual armrests. And the good thing is the quality materials in here, even though it is hard plastic, is still pretty good. It's consistent across the board. Looking at the switchgear, the quality of the switchgear is pretty good. And even though we are in a basic truck, I have a manual climate control system here, although it does tend to do a few things that are a little weird. It defaults to AC almost every time you start the vehicle, even though you don't want it on. It's always on. You have to turn it off. Sort of a little glitch. In the XLT, I still have a plastic steering wheel. All the controls are on here for your audio and the information settings. And one benefit to going to the FX4 package on the center screen in front of me is the fact that this comes with the fancier instrument cluster that you would normally only find in the Lariat. But because this has the off-road screens and some of the other things that go with the drive modes for the FX4, you get that upgrade here even in the XLT. Kind of a nice bonus because the basic instrument cluster is pretty basic. Now, these door panels have been talked about a lot in a lot of their press materials. You can put a 1-liter bottle in there, and that's why the actual door handle is cut away so you can put a tall bottle in there. But look how far back the hole goes in the map pocket back behind the panel. You can put a lot of things in these map pockets and even store a few things out of sight. That, I think, is pretty cool. Very versatile. And the versatility goes down here to the center console as well. Down here, there is a place to lay your phone flat. A wireless charger is available on some trim grades, but you can also set your phone up vertically. So I like that. I like to be able to keep an eye on my phone when I'm driving. If I hear a chime, I can look down and see if a certain notification is there. I love that. The USB ports are here for your connectivity here, as well as power, and a 12-volt power port as well. Cup holders in the center and other little cubbies down here behind that. Now, one thing this has that I'm not so jazzed about is the dial gear selector. I almost always prefer a lever. Not my favorite thing in the world, but the other controls are behind it for your drive modes and a few other things, including the auto start stop system. Now, storage in the center console is pretty generous. This is actually about 1.5 Kleenex boxes worth of storage in here, and it does provide a nice comfortable place to rest your arm. And both of these are the same height. Now, these seats in the XLT trim grade, we have a cloth seat that has a very nice denim-like fabric on it, a two-tone, and they have orange accent striping to go with the rest of the orange accents in here. I like them. I like them a lot. I think they're jazzy, and I think they're an above average type of thing instead of the standard black and gray. And they have a nice sturdy cloth on them that I have found to be pretty comfortable. Now, these are manually adjusting seats in this trim grade. I have a height adjustment, I've got a fore and aft adjustment, and a recline, but that's it. There's no lumbar adjustment or anything like that, so they're pretty basic seats. The good news is that they're firm and comfortable, and I've sat in them all week, and I'm pretty happy with that. When you're sitting in the back seat of the Maverick, there's no question that you're sitting in a compact truck, but I will point out that having sat recently in a Ford Ranger as well as a Toyota Tacoma, this is actually just as comfortable, if not maybe a little bit more, especially than a Toyota Tacoma, because there you're sitting down low, you feel like you're on the floor. Here you can see I've got a pretty good seating height. My knees aren't perched up. This is a very natural seating position. And these seats are set for my height, about 5'8", 5'9", with my boots on. And I've got some pretty good leg room back here. There's about 2 inches ahead of my knees. And, you know, I don't feel like I'm claustrophobically challenged back here. Let me just put it that way. Now, when it comes to amenities back here, we are on the XLT. There is a 12-volt charging port here, and the fits slot down here in the bottom of the console so that you can put accessories there, things like cup holders, which are missing back here. Missing back here, of course, are vents. There are no AC vents on the back of this console. Maybe expected at this price. At $30,000, certainly at $20,000 starting price, it wouldn't surprise me that they're not there, but it would be nice to have those there. Here in the XLT and above, there is a fold-down armrest with cup holders. And when it comes to storage, you can fold the seat bottom up, and there are storage bins built in underneath this seat. Now, if you get the hybrid, you're going to lose half of that bin on the passenger side because that's where the 12-volt battery will be. But it's a nice storage area, and the seat does fold forward, not so much for storage, but to actually access the jack and some other things that are stored back there. But overall, this is actually a pretty good space back here for a compact truck, better than some of the mid-sizers. One of the things that's optioned here in this Maverick, and something that I plan on putting in mine, are the rubber all-weather tray-style floor mats. These have been great, especially today, going out in the desert and jumping in this thing with dirty feet. You can just hose these things out. I love them. Overall, when it comes to rating this interior, I think they've done a great job creating a basic, low-cost interior that is no nonsense. There's not a lot of things going on here that aren't necessary. And even though some of the colors in here are a little bit controversial to some people, I happen to like it myself. I think they've done a good job design-wise as well as packaging. Now, yes, there could be a few more features here and there, a few more creature comforts, maybe more adjustments on these seats. Not a big fan of this rotary dial gear selector, but overall, this interior gets 4 out of 5 stars. When it comes to the infotainment system, this is an area that's gotten a lot of discussion with the Maverick. This is a very basic touchscreen radio. That's it, okay? This doesn't have navigation. This does not have satellite radio. In fact, this doesn't even have Sync 3, something that, for the most part, we thought was standard in all Fords. This is a base grade radio, an 8-inch screen, but it does have a lot to offer in terms of feature content. It does have Apple CarPlay. It does have Android Auto. Not wireless, but connective. It does have Bluetooth connectivity, and it also has this other feature called Smart Device Link, which allows you actually to integrate some apps like Pandora or some of the navigation apps right in here as if you were using Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, or as if they were built in, but it's working through Bluetooth. So the thing I like about that is I use Pandora, so I can stream Pandora here and have full functionality on the screen in terms of thumbs up, thumbs down, and maneuvering within Pandora without having to plug in and commit to Android Auto. The only problem is it works sometimes it doesn't work. That's why I'm not demonstrating it here for you right now. Otherwise, I can still connect this Bluetooth to my phone and run Pandora or any other streaming audio on it and still get that capability in terms of getting the music. There are some glitchy things here, especially if you plug in and use Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. It's a little bit slow sometimes. The other thing I would point out here is that the audio quality is, you know, I've read about that, and having spent the week in it, I can tell you that it's not audiophile. This is not the B&O sound system. The audio quality is okay, but certainly not the best in the business. There are some features here that you wouldn't expect, however, in a base radio. It has a 4G Wi-Fi hotspot. I've actually had a few people ask me what the backup camera's like, and maybe they've read and heard that it isn't so good. I think it's average. It's certainly not the best, not 360 degrees, but it does work pretty well, obviously, when the tailgate's up, because if you lay it down, then it's pointed the wrong direction. But for a base radio, I think it's okay in the $20,000 truck. I think up here at $30,000, I think they should have given us a bit of an upgrade here. Hyundai certainly did when you step up trim grade wise in their vehicle. So here, the system gets 3.5 out of 5 stars. All right, my friends, now we're ready to go for a drive, and we're starting out here in the off-road area that I like to test a lot of vehicles in. And the first thing I want to talk about is that this does have all-wheel drive, but it is not a locking transfer case style four-wheel drive system that a lot of trucks have. No, this is more like what you might find in a car with all-wheel drive or a crossover with all-wheel drive. Down on the center console, there is a drive mode selector. We have a number of drive modes here that are specific to the FX4, and those are normal, of course, tow haul, slippery, mud ruts, sand. We don't have a sport mode. They eliminated that here in the FX4, but because we're in the FX4, we have this nice, cool off-road display on the dash. So with that, let's get started. Now, the FX4 package does give us the larger tires, which are more suited for off-road use, and it does give us skid plates, and it does give us the tow hooks, but it doesn't really give us a lot in the way of a different heavy-duty suspension. But the first thing I'm noticing out here is, even though that the chassis on this is more or less just like any other Maverick, it's pretty robust. It feels nice and solid, and because of the size, it's very maneuverable. And the ground clearance, even though it's not nearly as much as you might find on some of the more off-road oriented SUVs, it's plenty for a more mild-mannered drive if you're way off the pavement. I'm noticing that this body structure feels pretty stiff, and because we are in a unibody truck, a lot of the bumps and the ruts and things like that that I'm going over do tend to transfer more into the cabin and the structure, where with a cab on frame type of arrangement, you tend to have rubber mounts between the cab and the frame, and gives you a little bit more isolation. Here you tend to feel it quite a bit more. But the good thing is it feels solid. It feels like a truck in terms of the firmness of the suspension. But now it's time for my favorite place to take a truck or a crossover, and that is the desert washboard road. Because while it isn't hardcore off-roading, this rhythmic vibrating surface really tells me how well built this thing is. And it's important to know, because I have one on order and I want to know how my truck's going to drive out here, because this is a road I actually drive on occasionally. I don't just come out here to test trucks. This is a place I go hiking quite a bit. And so what I'm noticing so far is that I am driving a crossover unibody vehicle, and as I mentioned out there, a little bit more vibration does come through, but I'm not getting any rattling in the suspension or the steering, which is a good thing. That means everything's bolted together nice and solid, and I'm not getting any rattling or vibration or shuddering from the components in here in the interior. The dash isn't bouncing up and down. I'm not getting rattling in the door frames or any of those sorts of things. But so far, this thing is pretty impressive out here on the desert washboard road. It doesn't feel like a POS. So it's safe to say that this passes the off-road trail test and the washboard road test with flying colors. But what's most important is, what's it like to live with around town? On paved roads, one of the things that I really found impressive about the Maverick is the fact that it drives very much like a car or a crossover SUV. The one thing I would say is that this does have a firm suspension like you'd expect on a truck, so it has that tough, solid feeling that you get from a pickup truck that's a few notches up from a car. But when it comes to refinement, road feel, handling, response from the steering, things like that, this has a level of refinement and enjoyability that you're not going to get in most body-on-frame trucks. And that really is the benefit here. You get a vehicle that's tough like a truck, but around town and living with it every day, you don't have the trade-offs that you get with a large or a mid-sized truck when it comes to handling and clunkiness and all of that. Now, when it comes to road noise, I've read a little bit out there. People were curious about the road noise. I actually did a decibel test on this, doing a standard 70-mile-per-hour cruise on the freeway. I have a test patch that I try to test all vehicles on. This rolls along at an average of 62.1 decibels at 70 miles an hour, with a high of 75, and that is for things like tar strips and things like that. But I think my big takeaway here is that they've created a truck based on a car crossover platform that has a nice balance and compromise of ride quality, refinement, and comfort, yet it's tough enough to call a truck. This chassis gets 4.5 out of 5 stars. Now it's time to talk about powertrain, and if you watch my videos, you know the question I always like to ask is, how does it go? Not a bad little burst of power there. And 60. All right, so what we have under the hood here, of course, is the 2-liter EcoBoost 4-cylinder engine, 4-cylinder turbocharged engine. It has 250 horsepower and 277 pound-feet of torque. And here in this truck, it has an 8-speed automatic transmission. a pretty nice powertrain that's well proven in the Ford lineup. It has a pretty good power curve, and in this vehicle, with the amount of weight that we have here, I find that it's got pretty good power. This transmission has impressed me this week around town, and like when you're on the freeway and you hammer it and you really want to get some passing power, not only does that transmission drop down and give you that power, but the engine really spools up quite quickly. Now, of course, this has a number of things that most modern cars have. One is auto start stop. Engine stops when you come to a stop, and when you let off the gas, it starts. I've never been a fan of auto start stop. It does have an off switch down here on the center console, but it defaults to on every time you start the car. If you don't like it, you have to turn it off. You have to remember to turn it off every time you get in the vehicle. Now, when it comes to fuel efficiency, this with all-wheel drive is rated at 22 city, 29 highway, and 25 mpg combined. In my week with it, with a pretty 50-50 blend of city and highway driving, I achieved 21 mpg. That's pretty well below the 25 mpg that's promised. So it does sort of fall short in the way of fuel efficiency, at least on my driving cycle. So basically, of the two powertrains, you can either choose the hybrid for fuel economy, or you can get this, which offers more power. The only areas I could really ask for some improvement are the fuel efficiency, but Ford's EcoBoost engines, they're always like that. They're always thirsty if you use the power. And of course, it gets a hit on refinement for that auto start-stop system. This powertrain gets 4 out of 5 stars. I think they have done a fabulous job here, which gets us to talking about value. This is a truck, a compact truck, that starts out at $20,000 and comes standard as a hybrid. Well optioned, well loaded, $30,000. Now, I think we should be done talking about value right there, but the fact of the matter is that when you look at the competition out there, of which there really is only one truck at the moment, that is the Hyundai Santa Cruz, that vehicle is about $4,000 more across the board, no matter how you trim it out. And that's because Ford aimed this at being a value leader. Hyundai chose to be a little bit more upmarket. Okay, it doesn't mean that there's apples and oranges going on there. They're pretty close to apples, but the fact of the matter is Ford just had a goal in mind to make this a value play, and that they did. The price, options pricing, I think very good on the value scale. When you look at quality, yes, not perfect, but again, this is a vehicle that was built to a price. It's built to start out at $20,000. So if you spend $30,000 or $38,000 on it, you've got a $20,000 truck with a lot of stuff on it when it comes to quality and build and things like that. So warranty coverage, not the best in the business. Hyundai does better. So when I put this in and look at the total score, we have a 4.5 star value score. When you put that in with everything we've already talked about, we're at 4 out of 5 stars for the review. Very good. And you know what else? It makes my buy it list. It just goes to show that a vehicle doesn't have to be 5 stars to be something that you'd want to buy, that I would buy. It makes sense for me. It makes sense for my business. In fact, my vehicle that I've already purchased, not only did it go on the buy it list, it is on the buy it list. I bought it. Mine will be showing up in January, at which point we will have an XL hybrid test drive review as well. So what I recommend you do is subscribe to our YouTube channel right down there if you want to see that. And in the meantime, click right there, see our entire playlist of Maverick content. We've got a lot of it. Either way, stay tuned.